news coming in. President Donald Trump has just tweeted, after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That is President Donald Trump making this statement here on Madhav joining me, Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan. This is the big breakthrough. We heard that there was a call that went from Mark Rubio straight to the army chief, clearly reading the riot act to him, following which we have this announcement by President Trump.
Absolutely, Navika. There's an unmistakable mark of the United States. As you rightly put it, Mark Rubio first reaching out to the Prime Minister. That didn't work, and then he reached out to the Army Chief. And we saw those signs with Khwaja Asif, in fact, dialing down the nuclear rhetoric earlier today. But this is the Truth Social post of President Donald Trump. He said that after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is, of course, the United States intervention. But one thing is very clear, Navika, India has been very restrained. But clearly, over the last 24 to 48 hours, India has given back to Pakistan and given it back in kind. While we may not have gone to the extent that Pakistan has, but clearly the fact that the strategic assets, there are various air assets and air bases that have been impacted, and there is in fact imagery of satellites to show that even runways of several of the crucial air bases such as Sargodha have been severely impacted. It is a beaten and battered Pakistan that has clearly had no other option but to go in and beg for this kind of a ceasefire, because if Pakistan had continued on this path, it would be a guaranteed path of destruction, and that finally is the only language that Pakistan appears to have understood as far as this entire confrontation is concerned. Back to
Madhav, the fact that India had flattened 5 of the air bases of Pakistan, clearly the smell of smoke as well as the phone call, the very, very hot line that was made to General Munir did the trick, because the riot act was read to him, and that can be our major speculation. But Colonel Amit Menon also on this. With this, what do you think? Quick reactions across my panel. Colonel Amit Menon, could this have happened because there was absolute clarity when Marco Rubio called up the army chief, because the political leadership was unable to convince the army chief in Pakistan?
Good evening, Navika. Thank you for having me on the panel. It's absolutely a breakthrough. See, in the past, always Pakistan had backing of a lot of international powers, especially the US. This is the first time when Vice President J.D. Vance said in very clear terms that we are not going to stop India. And that is the time, because Pakistan knows that they can only play a cat and mouse game with us. They are nowhere near any of our capabilities. They can't match. Most probably the war would have lasted for about 4 to 5 days maximum, with their air force getting completely destroyed, their army assets getting completely destroyed. So it is a lot of common sense on Pakistan's part. But my first reaction after seeing the tweet is that most probably our diplomats, and I think Ambassador Sinha might be able to speculate better on that, would have extracted some kind of concessions from Pakistan for agreeing to this
Absolutely, Ambassador Sinha, what do you think would have happened behind the scenes, given the fact that the telltale sign, the fact that Marco Rubio dialed General Munir, and then a second press briefing, this time by the External Affairs Minister at 6 p.m., the telltale signs of some amount of de-escalation as well as an agreement, a diplomatic agreement, seems to be the manner in which this has taken place now?
Navika, I'm not quite sure of the details of the denouement that is about to take place, if at all. But one thing is clear, that India has always stood on the side of peace. However, when provoked, we respond. And our very robust response has convinced not only Pakistan, but the rest of the world that we mean business. And we would have gone on and flattened the rest of Pakistan if they had continued with their cowardly attacks on convents, temples, gurdwaras, hospitals all over northern India, particularly in our state of Jammu and Kashmir. So I think while it may be a victory for diplomacy, I remember what happened after Kargil when Nawaz Sharif rushed to Washington and on the 4th of July was made to agree to withdraw his troops from the heights of Kargil after being beaten back for most part of that war. So I think there's a history behind this. The Americans have leverage, and I think no Pakistani leader, whether civilian and certainly not sitting in GHQ Rawalpindi, can defy an American diktat, because the relationship between the US and Pakistan, and particularly the Pentagon and GHQ, go back well into the Cold War and after. So I think it's a good development that if there is de-escalation, a lot of lives will be spared. But I think as far as India is concerned, we have to be very mindful that this is not the end, that we now know exactly what Pakistan has in mind for us under the current leadership, particularly the military leadership. We have to be wary and we need to respond, and not just respond to acts of aggression. We need to ensure.
Absolutely. I have to interrupt you there, Ambassador Sinha, because Srinjoy Chaudhary joining me. And Srinjoy, what is the inside story? How was this peace deal, so-called peace deal, brokered? India put out its warning there. India flattened their air bases. India was not going to take it lying down. And that was the message that went across straight to the United States of America, which then worked the phone lines, which they had been working unsuccessfully for the last 3 days. And today, we see the result. What's the back channel telling you?
Navika, as we have discussed and put on air, the Americans have been working the phones. Now, there were 2 or 3 very important points. You mentioned the first and most important ones, that India told the Americans that, look, we are the ones who are the aggrieved party. Pathankot and all those things apart, Pahalgam was the thing which made us do what we did. Now it's up to Pakistan. And this is something the Americans understood, which is why that most important call that was made to the Pakistani army chief. It's one thing to speak to Shahbaz Sharif, but the fact that Marco Rubio told the Pakistani army chief that cool it, and that was that big moment. After that, we know that the Pakistanis backed off. That was a very critical point. It's only after India made it clear to the Americans that we will go ahead and do what we have to do under these circumstances that the Americans spoke to the Pakistanis and changed the circumstances, Navika. That is the important point. These 24 hours have been very critical since yesterday afternoon. Between yesterday afternoon and today evening, these 24 hours have been very critical, and you have been part of this whole process as well. And we know that this was going to come, and finally it is with us. Now,
absolutely, we will now have to wait for the 6 p.m. briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Defense. But Major General Singh, how do you see these very fast-paced developments that have taken place? Of course, President Trump has tweeted this out. We still have to see the real facts between the lines and what Pakistan says, what India says at 6 p.m. But breakthrough, do you see this as a breakthrough? And do you think the military prowess, the restraint, and the resolve, the tectonic shift in the doctrine that was announced by India, having its impact not just on Pakistan but also on the world?
Navika, first of all, thanks for having me on this very esteemed Times Now channel, and also the esteemed speakers who have done great justice for each word they have spoken. And let me tell you that this ceasefire thing, the government would have studied it, but it will be very nascent for them also to analyze it. And we must be very careful of Pakistan, the nation, which has functioned with its first doctrine of madness in its leadership. So we hope that the ceasefire has a principled aspect in it and Pakistan abides by it. Secondly, I think what has mattered is the will of the nation, the will of the leadership, which has come to foreplay, the comprehensive national power which has developed in the last decade or so. That has come into play, and it has spoken. The shift, the tectonic shift, as Dr. Ranganathan said, from preemptive to a sleepy one, to a proactive doctrine, with a strategic initiative right now with India having been displayed in the last 72 plus hours, and not to lose the fact what proceeded from 22nd April onwards. The way the leadership has taken along the defense chiefs is exemplary. The nation noticed it, the international community has noticed it because it came out in the media, and they knew how the well-oiled machinery in India is taking forward this great India. We are now right on the top of the table, where you gave out a great preamble that we don't need to speak to anyone. Yes, that is a great message. And that message is the one which has also made our special strategic partner, America, to take the steps which have been taken. And I'm sure with our wisdom in leadership, with our exemplary display of last 75, 80 years to respect the international rule order based, we are going to take forward the nation together to greater heights. And I'm sure that the issue which we spelt out when we began the operation, non-escalatory and restrained, the terrorism part, the counter-terrorism part of ours will now come into play. If Pakistan, the message should go, you indulge in any terrorism, then it is India, the punitive action.
Absolutely. India is all set. And once again, let me, for our viewers who are just joining us, let me tell you the big announcement from President Trump. After a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. We know Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, had dialed. After wasting 2 days with the political leadership in Pakistan, they had dialed straight away the army chief, read him the riot act. In the meanwhile, India flattened four of their air bases, and that's when this deal has been worked out. Pakistan on the back foot. Secretary Marco Rubio also putting out his statement and saying over the past 48 hours, J.D. Vance and I have engaged with senior Indian and Pakistani officials. That's exactly what Marco Rubio is saying, and he has been the man talking straight away to the entire establishment of Pakistan, including the army chief, and he said Shahbaz Sharif, External Affairs Minister, Subramaniam Jaishankar, Chief of Army Staff, Asim Munir, National Security Advisors, Ajit Doval and Asim Malik. I'm pleased to announce the governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and to start talks on a broad agreement of issues that they will address. So that is Marco Rubio. J.D. Vance also retweeting what President Donald Trump has said. Admiral Raja Menon, how do you see this swift and fast developments? Do we still have to wait for the subtext of the Indian Minister of External Affairs and his briefing this evening?
Yeah, definitely. We need something more concrete to call off the armed forces. Or to make them stand down. But I see that the altered doctrine still stands. I hope it does. Because as far as facing a nation which is not a neighbor, which is not prepared to live in peace, there are only two alternatives. One is to adopt what the United States did at the beginning of the Cold War when they were faced with a nuclear adversary, is to go for what they call a grand strategy.
Absolutely, and
But
we'll have to wait
there
for
are
the
some-
subtext. Sorry for interrupting you, but Ishaq Dar, Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, putting out his statement. Pakistan and India have agreed to a ceasefire with immediate effect. Pakistan has always strived for peace and security in the region without compromising on its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We are waiting to look at the first statement coming in from India, but for now, Pakistan has also made this announcement. What's also important at this moment is the fact that Saudi Arabia has also made a statement. Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan had phone calls with the Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jay Shankar, and Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. Did Saudi Arabia also have a role to play? Anand Ranganathan, how do you see these fast-paced development? We will have to see what India has been able to extract from this, but the paradigm shift, the manner in which India responded with a strong will, the manner in which India remained committed to ending terror with or without anybody's help and without relenting to Pakistan's sound and games, sound and light show at our LOC. This seems to be the reaction coming in from the world.
Navika, as a layman and as a common citizen of India, not being an expert in defense matters, I have a few points to make regarding the ceasefire. Of course, I will be a little bit more definitive once I read the details of the ceasefire, but 3 or 4 things. Have we achieved the objective that we started out to before and after Operation Sindoor? Have all the terror hubs of Pakistan been neutralized? Has Pakistan's defense capability to strike us being blunted severely? Have the perpetrators of the Pahalgam terror strike being neutralized, or have we asked Pakistan to send them to us? That's point number 1. Because after all, Operation Sindoor was regarding Pahalgam as core. Number 2, the concessions have we drawn from Pakistan? Do they include certainly the abrogation of Indus Water Treaty and our new dogma that any new terror attack, we would attack Pakistan without thinking twice about the nuclear buff. But I have to say this also as a common man, again, common citizen, I am disappointed that other nations are declaring this before India is. That puts us in the same pigeonhole as Pakistan, as another country. I do not like Trump and other countries declaring a ceasefire when we ourselves haven't said it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, Anand Ranganathan, but the fact is Pakistan and India have not had talks for a very long time. And you would agree, practically, it is impossible to talk to a rogue nation next to us. It will have to be a neutral party which can get some sense into Pakistan. Otherwise, the only talking would happen through weapons and defense systems. Now, is that really the manner in which anything can take place, given the fact that wars, can they have solutions in the long term, is a question that all of us know. But since Pakistan and India were only speaking the language of war, somebody needed to drill that sense into the head of Pakistan. The fact of the matter is, India has stood its ground. India has shown its military prowess. India has shown its moral high ground, not targeting civilians, targeting, number 1, the terror camps, number 2, only responding to provocation coming from Pakistan, and number 3, telling the world we can do it alone. All of these statements have been made to a global community. It is, to my mind, a position of strength, and the announcement that any further act of terror would be seen as an act of war. India's made its stand clear. But